Good morning, everybody, and welcome to AI with Kyle. Today is Monday, the 28th of July, and I'm going to be bringing you the latest AI news and updates, as well as taking live questions from the audience. If you are watching this live, please make sure to leave a question, and we'll get to it in between the news segments. But I'm going to kick off for now with this BBC News article talking about the first AI model that has appeared in Vogue magazine. Now, this sounds like a big deal, but it's not quite what it sounds like. So this is a little bit of overblown media coverage at the moment. So in the August print edition of Vogue, a Guess advert featuring a flawless blonde model showing off a striped maxi dress and a floral playsuit from the brand summer collection. So it is an advert. It's an advert produced by the brand Guess, and they have used an AI model in it. And in the small print in one corner, the ad reveals that that's interesting. BBC has used the pronoun she. So the ad reveals that she was created using artificial intelligence. So this is in Vogue. So obviously that's a big deal. Vogue is one of the foremost fashion magazines. Even I, someone who knows very little about fashion, knows what Vogue is. So this is an AI model that has appeared in Vogue, but it's an AI model that's appeared inside an advert in Vogue. So I would say it's a little bit different. However, adverts do come under their editorial standards to a certain extent. They will have certain guidelines about what can be shown in Vogue, what cannot be shown in Vogue. And they have decided to allow this advert in, despite it having an artificially generated female in it. The funny thing is the AI generation isn't very good. I know we can do a lot better. We can do much more photorealistic artificial intelligence images here, but for some reason this looks like an AI image from, I don't know, about a year ago or so. So I wonder why that is. I wonder if that's to make it seem a bit more obvious that it's AI, because some of the more recent models, like Flux, for example, are fairly photorealistic. So if they'd worked on this, especially if they'd used post-processing in Photoshop, for example, they could have made this look photorealistic, but Guess have chosen not to for whatever reason, and they've also labeled it as an AI advert as well. So I think this is again, this is getting covered because it is artificial intelligence appearing in a very traditional form of media, in print media, in a very old, long-standing magazine, Vogue magazine, and it's showing a new, well, supposedly a new standard of beauty, which is generated by artificial intelligence rather than actually being a human. But I think, again, this is going to become very, very common. I think increasingly adverts are going to use AI just because it is so much cheaper than setting up a whole studio, bringing in models, hiring a photographer, which costs a lot of money, using all the equipment. If you can instead generate product images using artificial intelligence for your 100, your 500, your 10,000 dresses, you want to put them on different AI models in order to fill a website with product shots, you're probably going to do that instead. So yes, this is notable because it's shown in Vogue, but I think outside of high prestige publications like Vogue, this is going to become the norm very, very quickly, and probably with better quality than this too. This is a terrible looking AI. But yes, people are upset about this. It is disheartening. It feels lazy and cheap. Either Guess is doing this to create a talking point, very likely, and get free publicity, or they want to cut costs, and don't think about the implications of that. This is a model. So obviously for models, this is terrible news because a lot of their work is not going to be high-end photo shoots for a magazine like Vogue. A lot of their work is not going to be high-end in-person runway shows, for example. A lot of the bread and butter work is going to be fashion shoots for product images, for websites and for e-commerce, for etc. That's going to be the bread and butter. This tends to be the case with a lot of the work that AI is taking. It is not necessarily going to be the high-end stuff. It is going to be the base level run-of-the-mill work. However, that's also where a lot of the money is, unless you are in the higher echelons of your particular industry. So a lot of jobs will be lost, a lot of low-level modeling jobs and a lot of lower-level photography jobs as well because of this. Not because it's going to be taking over the runways, not because it's going to be the Vogue centerfolds, but because of the workaday 9 to 5 jobs are going to be lost. Cool. So, yep, it's interesting, but I think it's a larger trend that's going on, and it's just getting some coverage because, well, guests are going to get some publicity from here, negative, positive, whatever it is. At least they're going to be seen. Cool. So the next one up, I haven't actually read this, but let's have a look. So again, from the BBC, we have to be careful with the BBC's coverage of AI. They're always extremely negative, and I understand why. They are traditional journalists. It is a big threat to journalism. So I 100% understand and empathize with why, but we do need to be careful. Like this article, I know if I scroll to the bottom, oh, okay. No, I was incorrect. Normally, they have like a scare text at the bottom saying, "Oh, remember that this stuff destroys the environment and could be used for deep fakes, etc." Normally, they have a few lines at the bottom, basically dunking on AI. It's like, oh, okay. So this one is a particular person. So this is unusual. A particular individual, human being called Geraldine Jinks, who has lost her job specifically because of AI. So normally, when we hear about job losses in AI, it will be, Microsoft get rid of 9,000 jobs. Maybe it's to do with AI. We don't really know. It's just job losses. Or KPMG cut their graduate program. They're not bringing as many people. And again, we speculate like, oh, it could be because they're using AI, so they don't need as many graduate positions. We don't really know, though. Sometimes, like Klarna, the CEO will make a big deal about the fact that he's using AI. He has since retracted that. The Klarna mess is a whole big thing, though. They're trying to go public, but their business is also failing. So I think the CEO was trying to make big proclamations about AI in order to show that he could save the business with it. So that's a messy one. But generally, we do not get told, oh, this individual, this person, Geraldine, has lost her job because of AI. So this one's a bit different. So Geraldine Jinks has worked for Peterborough City Council for 35 years as a therapy practitioner supporting adult social care. The council said she's often inundated with questions, and although she was happy to help, it did put pressure on her time. So they recognized this, and the authority started working on a technological solution, developing a tool called Hey Geraldine. Oh, I've read this wrong. I've read this totally wrong. She has not lost her job. Okay, good. This is why I should read ahead. Good job, Geraldine. You haven't lost your job. So Miss Jinks worked with the team to feed information to the AI tool so it could answer questions daily on a daily basis in her usual chatty and direct manner. I'm so excited to develop this chatbot, she said. Staff can now ask me questions whenever they want and receive a reply straight away. It's lovely they've kept my name, and some of the staff have told me that they've actually thought they were chatting with me. I guess that's because I've written all the answers. Okay, so they have turned this woman, Geraldine, into a chatbot. She has not lost her job. Good. I'm glad for Geraldine, because that would be a very sad article if it was Geraldine had trained a chatbot and immediately lost her job. It sounds like this is something she does unofficially on the side, but she's so useful that she has become the go-to. Obviously, that is the kind of darker side here. So Geraldine has worked for Peterborough for 35 years. We may not need someone like Geraldine in the future because all of that institutional knowledge has now been saved into this chatbot. Once we have ways to, sounds terrible, but to extract that institutional knowledge from the staff members, from emails, for example, if we could do it automatically, from messages going back and forward, from meeting notes. Once we have a way to extract all of that automatically, we don't need to go through this manual process of interviewing Geraldine or interviewing somebody like her in order to get that information. So I think this is great for Geraldine herself, and I should have read ahead and made sure I knew what was actually going on. But yes, we do need to be aware of the fact that by doing this, if we can create these kind of chatbots, this does mean we need less people in an organization because suddenly that information is not stored in the head of one person. It is available to everybody via the AI within the organization. However, if this means we can provide better service in like the healthcare system, for example, fantastic. So, okay, this is not the tragedy that I thought. I thought she had lost her job, but instead she's been institutionalized. It actually reminds me of, so I have a chat bot that's based on me. I built it using Delphi, which is a really cool piece of software. It's fairly inexpensive. I want to say about $20 a month or so. And I fed in maybe 500,000 words that I'd written myself for my newsletter, because I write a huge amount. So primarily on the uses of AI to help start and grow businesses. I've written half a Bible's worth in the last year and a half. So I fed all of that in. I fed in transcripts of my videos. I fed in all the information I could. And my students can use that, and they can use it to talk to me on a one-to-one basis. And I had a guy called Tamas the other day, last week. He actually shot a video about, hey, I've just had an hour-long conversation with Kyle Balmer. And so I saw this video. I was like, I don't remember this call. And Tamas was saying, I called up Kyle's AI avatar, his AI clone, and I basically chatted to it about business problems and what I should be doing, and what kind of AIs I can use, etc., for over an hour. And it helped me to work through some problems. Oh, wow, that's really, really cool. So AI avatars are useful when they're given enough information. And this is the problem most people have when they're building their own digital clone, is that they don't necessarily have enough written content. They don't necessarily have enough video content to feed into the AI avatar. We can work around this by having the tool interview us. So it can ask us questions like, oh, if you were going to start a business right now, what would you start? And I would answer, given my, my best opinion on the subject. But if you've already written a huge amount of stuff, if you've already shot lots of video, you can just feed all of that straight in, and you can skip the training phase. So if you are somebody who does write or produce content, or, if you've written books, fantastic. It's well worth looking into something like Delphi or Coachvox, VOX, in order to see if you can make a digital clone of yourself, because they are genuinely useful to both your customers and also for yourself, because you can have, it sounds weird, you can have conversations with yourself, a digital version of yourself, which is it's an existentially weird thing to do, but I've also found it quite useful, talking to a digital version of myself as a sounding board. So well worth looking into, especially if you have a business. I'm going to jump over to some questions. Thank you for your questions, everyone. Just scroll through. Has1K is saying, how safe and secure is Lovable? Is this connected to the T scandal? So I'm about to talk about T, which is an app which had the identifiable information of, I think, 70,000 women who had been discussing, well, I'll get to it in a moment, but it had identifiable information, and it was breached, and there was, and again, I will talk about this, an indication that it might have been vibe coded, and this is why it wasn't secure. It's actually not that, but I would say Lovable. So Lovable itself is secure. What could not be secure is your backend. So if you build an application, you basically have two things when you build an application, very roughly, and don't come at me, coders. You have two things. You're going to have the front end. The front end is what your customers and what your users see. So when you go to a website and you type things into a form, that is a front end. When you go to eBay and you can see all the listings and you have a user account, etc., that's the front end. A back end is basically the database that sits behind, the database that has all of the information about your customers, about your users, about what they've purchased from you, maybe their credit card information, generally encrypted, should be encrypted, etc., etc. So the back end, that's the thing that you need to keep secure. And this is the problem that a lot of vibe coding tools have. So it's not necessarily the fault of the vibe coding tool. The problem is vibe coding and using tools like Lovable allows people who don't have experience in coding, they don't have experience in front end or back end or security, to build tools. That's awesome. But when you deploy it, and it's potentially being used by tens or hundreds of thousands of people, the cracks can start to show, because if you don't have the ability to know what kind of security you should be setting up, then there's no way to instruct Lovable about, hey, we need to make sure that this is secure. So there's a gap in knowledge when it comes to vibe coding, which means a lot of vibe coded tools are not secure. That's not necessarily Lovable's fault. It's just that we as the creator haven't said, hey, I'm about to release this. How do we make sure nobody can hack into this? How do we make sure nobody can get the information? So Lovable has a native integration with something called Supabase. Supabase is secure. So what you do is you connect your Lovable account to a Supabase account, and then that's going to deal with most of your security issues. Not all of them, but most of them, because we're not building the back end ourselves. Thankfully, we are borrowing someone else's technology. That said, there are still ways to mess up, and I'm going to talk about T in a moment. So if you are going to production, if you are selling and making money off your application, you can still absolutely build using something like Lovable. I highly recommend it for minimum viability products. And indeed, all of this week, I'm writing about it in the Playbook newsletter. So make sure you check that out. This week, I'm talking about how you add payment systems, for example. So we are talking about security. That's free, and it's a link in the bio. But if it's a business and you know you're going to have hundreds, thousands, tens of thousands of customers, it's well worth the time and the money to go to a security expert and have them make sure everything is fully secure. If you're going to be making that kind of money, then and having that amount of traffic, then you need to make sure that it's belt and braces and everything is good to go. So definitely go ahead and have it secured by a professional if you are selling. Shan, I'm getting involved in digital marketing. Cool. I'm selling products and courses, majority is online. Sounds good. So digital marketing is actually my background. I used to run a digital marketing agency up until, basically the release of ChatGPT 3.5, GPT 3.5. It came out, and I remember thinking like, this is a problem, because we used to do a lot of copywriting. We used to do a lot of ads, writing ads, creating ads. And I realized quite early on that was at risk because of artificial intelligence. So if you are running a digital marketing agency or doing any kind of digital marketing right now, make sure you are integrating AI, because anyone who's not will definitely get left behind. But the fact that you say selling products and courses, majority is AI, you should be fine. Good morning. Will ChatGPT 5 be a big game changer, do you think? So it's hard to imagine how they can make it much better. No. It's hard to imagine how they can make it visibly and publicly much better. So there's a lot going on behind the scenes. Obviously, the models are getting better and better. But there aren't that many big splashy things that can be done now. So when they added things like the ability to use your phone in video mode to record and to show ChatGPT what you could see, and it could respond in real time. But things like that are very flashy, very showy. They're really good on the conference stage, and where you can show them to people in real life, and they're like, "Oh wow, that's really, really cool." Same thing for like image generation, for example. When ChatGPT started to be able to create images, yes, Midjourney, etc., had been doing this for a while, but when it was built into ChatGPT, suddenly people are like, "Oh wow, it's really cool." And voice mode, advanced voice mode, they have lots of flashy features, functions that are added onto the core model, which are impressive. And they are very obviously impressive. It's hard to imagine what additional things they can add like that are going to blow people out of the water, that are going to make people sit up when they do the announcement and be like, "Oh my God, wow, this changes the game." We may be surprised. I'm sure there are some very exciting things happening. But what I think it might be, and from the scuttlebutt, is more of a unification. So more of bringing all the models together, making it less confusing, because right now there's a drop down at the top and it has 4, 5, 6 different models you can choose from. Most people do not know which one to choose. They have no idea. So streamlining that process is mainly a user experience, UX, and UI to a certain extent, by having a model and an interface, a chatbot that is more intelligently chooses what underlying model it should be using for your particular task. So I think it's probably going to be more of a unification, which is going to make it more powerful for most users, because it will know whether to use a reasoning model. It will know when to use deep research, when to generate images, etc. It will work all of that out itself, which will be very impressive for people who don't know how to manually switch between them. But I think for people who are more advanced users, they might actually not be excited by that feature because it might take away control. We don't know though. This is all entirely speculation. I'm hoping we will see something that will absolutely blow us out the water. It's just getting harder and harder and harder to impress people because the increases each time are becoming more and more specialized. So now we're talking about who can get the International Math Olympiad gold medal. For most people, most lay people, most people in the street, they don't care about that. Their level of mathematics is not high enough for that to be a useful proposition. They just want it to be able to write useful emails and to help with brainstorming and stuff like that. I'm not sure how much further the model can get in those particular areas compared to the niche edge cases like mathematics and reasoning, for example, which is going to be less visually impressive, but maybe more fundamentally useful as we move forward. But we'll see. Shan is saying jobs have been lost in Birmingham City Council, not to mention they're in debt anyway. I mean, most councils in the UK are in debt, unfortunately. Were the jobs lost due to AI? I know there's a general economic slowdown at the moment. Our growth rate is 0.1, 0.2%. I love it how the government proudly declare it's like, oh, it's non-negative. Our growth rate is a rounding error. So the economy's in the toilet. So AI doesn't help that, but I don't think AI has necessarily caused that. So I think there's a lot of economic distress right now and job loss and inflation, but not increasing salaries. I think these have longer roots than just artificial intelligence. AI is a very useful scapegoat. We can blame a lot of stuff on AI, but I don't think most companies are replacing jobs with AI just yet. I think what's happening instead is they are creating less new positions. So especially at the lower levels, suddenly you don't need to bring in as many people because individual new recruits, individual new graduates, for example, are more productive because they are able to use AI. So you can decrease the number of people. So we've seen this in the Big Four in particular. I think that's more to do with AI, as well as tightening the purse strings, obviously, but artificial intelligence works at those low levels really well. I don't think we're seeing that many jobs lost directly because of artificial intelligence. It's not, okay, you no longer have a job. Now there's an AI taking your place, but instead it's a decrease in the creation of new jobs, if that makes sense. And I don't know about Birmingham specifically, but I imagine like a lot of places in the country, it just doesn't have money because economically the country, well, we don't build anything, unfortunately. That Red Bandit says, if you know what you actually need and can ask Lovable to do it, can you do it well? So I think this is to do with security and securing a vibe coded app. Yes, generally. So if you know all the steps required to make an app secure, then yes, you can go to Lovable and you can say, this is what we need to do. You can also say, hey, we're getting ready for launch. I need to make sure this is secure. Can you give me a checklist of the things that we need to cover? And then you're going to run through them one by one with Lovable. Or what I prefer to do is you can ask Claude or ChatGPT. You can say, hey, I'm working with a vibe coding app. I'm not sure how secure it's going to be, so I want to make sure we have belt and braces. Can you give me a checklist, a best practices checklist? And then we're going to work our way through that inside Lovable. So you use an external AI to get the guidelines, to get the project plan. Then you take that back into Lovable. The other thing you can do, this is how I personally work, is you can put together your basic version. You can make sure it works and that the idea that you had works on paper. That's not the right word. Works as an application. You can use Lovable for that to get your basics done. Then you can export that out into Cursor, and then you can do what you want with it. So Cursor is I'm not going to call it an AI tool. It's a programming tool. It's a development environment, but it has heavy artificial intelligence features. So you can vibe code with it, but it's kind of the next level up from Lovable, Replete, and Bolt. Oh, Steph just said, any experience with Cursor? Yes, I love Cursor. So Cursor, I will expand on that then. Cursor is much more powerful than Lovable, but it requires, well, it has a steeper learning curve as a result of that. It is a more traditional development environment, so you can build anything in it. Lovable is really good as a starting point, vibe coding, the basics, getting the shape together, which is really important because most people have ideas, but they never actually get those ideas out of their head. And it's by going back and forward with a tool like Lovable that we can actually work out what that looks like in a concrete version. So we can actually play around with it and realize that, oh, wait, no, the idea I had for this, that doesn't actually work. Let's work out how we can make this actually useful. So Lovable is really good for that, for very basic stuff. And then you can export all the files, all of your project files out into Cursor. Make sure you set up with GitHub, etc. So you can do version control. You can do that in Lovable too. But then you can do the rest of the build in Cursor. You can do the versioning. You can make it more advanced. You can deal with your security, etc., etc., etc. So I won't say Cursor is better than Lovable. It is different. So for a very basic project that you just want to get done, get published, Lovable is fantastic. If you want to build something more robust, something that's more scalable that you're going to build on in the future, then you'd probably take it to Cursor. It really depends on your business goals. If you do not know how to code, though, Lovable is going to be the place to start. Again, all of this week, it's actually a 10-part course. I'm writing it's called the AI Summer Camp. It guides you through coming up with a business idea. Actually, let me pull it up. I think I can pull it up. It's a 10-week series, a course I'm writing, basically. It's all free, and it's in my newsletter. So it was based on a Greg Eisenberg tweet. Let me pull up the video as well. Based on a Greg Eisenberg tweet, someone should create an AI summer camp. There are 254 million college students worldwide who know that AI is coming for them. By the time today's college freshmen graduate, so in 3-4 years, AI agents will have eliminated 80% of entry-level jobs. This is Greg Eisenberg talking, not me. 80% is probably a bit high. Enter the AI summer camp, 10 weeks, 50,000 students free upfront. So Greg Eisenberg was saying, hey, somebody should put together a summer camp showing people how to build with artificial intelligence, showing them how to create a business as well. Nobody stepped up, so I did. And I've created this camp. I'm on week 6 or 7 now, and I'm writing it bit by bit by bit. So the 10 weeks are, again, this is free. I'm not pitching you anything here. One is finding your niche. So finding an opportunity in the market. So it's not just what you want to build because it's going to be kind of cool. It's what you can actually sell. 2, talking about audience strategy and starting to build your audience as soon as possible. Week 3, finding your startup idea. So turning your problem solution into an actual idea and a project plan, something you're actually going to build. Week 4 is vibe coding your MVP, your minimum viability product. That is inside Lovable. So I recommend Lovable. Manual beta testing, was that last week I wrote that? So that's finding users through direct outreach and having them become beta testers and then champions. So they're going to be the people who spread the word later. Grassroots marketing, talking about how to market products without having an audience in place and without having to spend money, which are the normal 2 ways to do it. So I've assumed that most people do not have those resources in place, and therefore I walk you through how you can do this from scratch. And then basic revenue systems, that's what I'm writing this week. So I'm talking about how you can hook up Lovable to take payments, how you set up subscriptions in Stripe, how you set token limits, etc., etc. And then talking about peer-to-peer growth, so relationships, building through partnerships. Direct sales is week 9, talking about how you actually make sales. And then beyond is going to be week 10. So this is all free. And the idea is to help you build your first AI application and to make your first $1,000 in online revenue over the 10 weeks. And that's all available in the newsletter, and it's free to sign up. So go and check that out. So all of this is built with Lovable, and I recommend people building with Lovable because it allows you to not get in your own way. Because something like Cursor is amazing, but if you do not know how to code, you're going to end up going down a rabbit hole of complexity. And instead, we just need to move fast. We need to build something basic, get that out into the world, see if anyone actually cares about it. If they do care about it, then we can add layers of sophistication and complexity later. And Cursor is perfect for that. So I got a bit distracted there, but it's a good question. Tekaroy says, I'm launching an innovation club with AI to help people upskill. Awesome. And together launch new businesses. So this is what I do. My gig, my main work is I go and give workshops telling people how to use AI. The level of knowledge out there is still very low. If you are sitting watching, me, some British dude on Monday morning, chatting about AI on TikTok, that tells me that you already know more than 99% of the people out there, anyone who is on this live, because your social media is showing you educational content about AI instead of, I don't know, Roblox clips or sexy ladies. You've got me instead, sorry. So anyone here, anyone on the live, anyone who follows me generally has a much higher, I know that you have a much higher level of AI sophistication than 99% of the people out there. So it's actually important that you take that knowledge and you go and help people in your industry. So you're putting together an innovation club, so helping people upskill and launch new businesses. I mean, really, that's really cool. If you are, so not Tekaroy, but other people, if you are, for example, if you work in the education sector, for example, and you use AI and you're using it every day, then I think you kind of have an obligation to go and help other people in the education section work out how to do this. If you work in medical, if you work in accountancy, if you work in admin, whatever your sector is, if you are using these tools and it's saving you a lot of time, and you are using them safely, then it's important for you to go and teach other people. The reason is there are so many people who are either ignoring this technology because they're scared of it and they think it is too hard, it's too technical, which is not the case. If you can use WhatsApp, you can use ChatGPT. So they're scared of it. So you can go in and say, hey, it's not that scary. You should probably be using this, and you can help them increase their productivity hugely. Two, there are people who are using this stuff, but they're using it wrong. And this happens in organizations, particularly where the company has said you cannot use AI. You kind of need to go and help those companies, because what happens when you tell staff members they can't use AI is they will just bring their own. They'll roll their own ChatGPT and they'll bring their private account to work and start using it at work. The problem with that is data security. At least if a company embraces artificial intelligence, get some basic training for their staff members and get some rules in place about what you can put into AI and what you can't put into AI. If that company has, paid for enterprise accounts, etc., they have increased data security. So they need to engage with this and have some kind of positive, either saying yes, we're using this, or no, we're not using this, but doing it from a point of education rather than a point of fear, which is where most people are. So I go and give workshops generally in the marketing industry, and I generally only do them overseas now. So like in the last year, the last few months I've done, I went to Vegas and talked in front of 500 people. I did Switzerland and Amsterdam. Is that it? Oh, and I was going to go to Thailand, but that didn't work, unfortunately, because it was at the same time as another thing. Anyway, but there's a huge amount of demand for people to go and teach artificial intelligence, not teaching how to build them, not teaching the engineering, but teaching the basics, like helping to break down barriers of fear and helping to get people started with some very, very basic, like this is how you can use it, this is what you shouldn't use it for. It's a really, really big opportunity. So I personally charge about $1,500 per hour to go and teach, US dollars. The most I've charged is $4,000 for 1 hour, which is mad. And I have students now who go and teach and they charge $1,000, $2,000 per hour. So there's a huge demand. And you do not need to be the smartest person in the room. You just need to be able to explain to people in your industry why AI is important. So Tekaroy, the fact that you have started a club and you're helping people to do this stuff is fantastic. I would also look at helping businesses because you can get paid very, very, very well, and it's easy work. Scroll through. Amul says, "Hey brother, in your last life, we are talking about somebody who was building in public. What's that guy's name, and why should we follow him again?" Yeah, his name is Yoni. Let me get his full thing. Yoni will do it. So Yoni, Yoni. Yoni will do it, and his on Instagram. He's got 178,000 followers on Instagram. He's yoniman.mp4. So he has recently launched an application, I think about 2 months ago, called Brainrot, which is doing very well. I believe he did. Yeah, he's got a 60-day investor update. The reason I recommend following him and checking out what he's done is just a really cool idea. He started posting in public about what he was building before he was even building anything. So he posted his education journey. And it wasn't until, I want to say about 3-4 months ago, no, maybe 6 months ago, that he actually sat down and built something. He built Brainrot. He did projects before that, but Brainrot is the one that he's released. I think it got to the top of Product Hunt in its category, trended on the App Store, and he's making money now, like decent money. I think he crossed his first $30,000 in the first month. I don't know where he is now. I need to check out that new video. But he is an example of a guy who he started to build in public, and it's warts and all. So it's this whole learning process, and it's all of the doubts and fears and not knowing what's going on. But over time, he's managed to use that to build up an audience, so that when he came to launch his product, when he came to the launch day of Brainrot, he already had 150,000 people he could talk to. That's incredibly important, because there are so many people who are building now, especially with artificial intelligence, making it easier. They're building and then they launch and it's crickets, because there's a huge amount of stuff. There's a huge amount of noise out there. So if you go to any kind of AI tool directory, it's basically a graveyard of really good ideas, but none of them had any marketing. They did not know how to sell. And if you start before your product is ready, if you start to build up your audience before that, then you have a lot of people that you can talk to automatically, and it just makes launching things way easier. So I now have an audience overall, the platforms, of about 250,000, so about 250,000. And it means when I have a new product idea, or I'm doing a partnership with somebody, working with them on an app or software or whatever it is, I know I can go immediately to 250,000 people and say, hey, is this interesting to you? Which allows you to test out business ideas, test out products really, really, really fast. So what Yoni did was build that up first and then work out what he was going to sell to them later, which I think is just very smart, and it's worked extremely well for him. Oh, Amul, how do we access this course? So the 10-week summer camp is in my newsletter. So if you follow the link in my bio, there's going to be a newsletter sign up, and then you can go back through the archives and you'll be able to access them all. Once it's all done, I'll compile it into a nice 10-week course webpage. But right now I'm writing it as we go along, but hopefully it's useful and totally free. Greg is brilliant, isn't he? Greg Eisenberg. This is a Quirk in the Click. I learned so much from him, and he has fascinating, interesting guests. Yes, Greg is worth following. If people don't know who he is, Greg Eisenberg is, he's an investor and entrepreneur, but he's probably one of the few people who's writing about the kind of the new world we're moving into, where AI is the norm. And he talks about things like, I remember one of the best stories was he was in a product meeting with his team, and people were talking about, oh, we could do this, we could, we could build this, we could add this feature. People were talking about ideas. And while everyone was talking about ideas, one of their kind of junior developers was just sitting there typing away. And then all the older people were like, okay, yep, okay, we've got these ideas. Let's go away. Let's think about them. Let's come back in a week and we'll come up with an action plan, blah, blah, blah. And the young guy's like, no, I've built it. It's done. And all the old guys like, wait, what are you talking about? And he showed them he'd built a minimum viability product, a solid thing. While everyone was just chatting and yapping about ideas, he had vibe coded very, very quickly, in a few minutes, a basic working version of what they were talking about, so that they could actually feel it, touch it, feel it, play with it, and see if it was aligned with what they were thinking. Old businesses, I'm sure you've been in meetings. I've managed to avoid them most of my life, thank God. But most businesses go through meetings and nobody taking any responsibility, and people being assigned bits and pieces and going away, brainstorming, coming back, having discussions, etc. With vibe coding, if you have an idea, you can put it into a product, you can build something in minutes, and you can see very quickly if it's a good or a bad idea. So it cuts away all of that crap. It means you cannot hide behind meetings, you cannot hide behind project briefs, etc. You can very quickly throw up a basic version and realize, like, oh no, this is terrible. This is a bad idea. Let's kill it. Which allows you to move at a much faster rate. And Greg Eisenberg is one of the entrepreneurs, one of the VCs, one of the investors who has realized this. And he's realized the game has changed because we can build so quickly that people's ideas are junk now. If you go in with a pitch deck and you say, this is my idea for something I want to build, and you haven't already built it, you're not going to be able to raise money now. The game has changed because you can just pick up your keyboard and you can, in minutes, have a minimum viability product working. And again, that's all the kind of stuff that I cover in the 10-week course. So if you don't follow Greg Eisenberg, he's well worth following. He has that podcast too. But also his Twitter is killer because he squeezes everything down into really, really succinct ideas. Jack is asking, best way to connect a network with other founders and people in the AI space. Honestly, I'm not a big networker. I've been to like 2 networking events this year when they have free beer primarily. That's not really what I do. I think the best way to network is to build something interesting, to do something interesting, to publish, to talk, to write, and then people will come to you automatically. So I'm now in a WhatsApp group with like all of the big AI creators, so Nate B. Jones, CatGPT, Ross, Fletajon, Marcin AI, etc. We're in a big group together, but that comes from publishing, by creating content, by being out there, telling people what it is you are building, telling people what you're working on. That is the best form of networking because people know you and you don't know them yet. This sounds conceited, it sounds arrogant, but it really, really works as a networking plan. So it doesn't mean it means you're not going to events and be like, hi, this is my name, I'm working on this AI startup, I'm going to raise money, blah, blah, blah. Everybody's doing that. Absolutely everybody's doing that. So any event you go to will just be that, and it's hard to get through the noise. Instead, if you build something and you do it publicly, like Yoni Man that I just showed you is doing, then people will come to you. Then the conversations will begin with the people that you want to chat to. So you build first and connect later. It also means you don't get distracted by constantly networking, by constantly reaching out to people, but instead you just build cool things. So that would be my personal answer. I know some people who have done very well with direct networking though, like so they're hitting people up on LinkedIn, they're organizing Zoom calls and meetings, coffee dates, etc. That's not me personally. I just wait for people. I'm lazy. I wait for people to come to me instead. But I highly recommend that if you don't like networking, if you're a bit introverted, then just build cool things, talk about it publicly, publish what it is you're building, and people will come to you and be like, hey, that's cool. Can we chat? And it works really, really well. Ben says, when do you think GPT-5 will be released? No idea. The previous date was going to be, or the previous month was going to be July. We are very quickly running out of July, so I don't think it's going to be July. Now people are talking about August, but hard to tell. I think it's ready when it's ready. This comes back to the question of what are they going to release that is going to blow people's socks off? Because they're kind of under pressure here, where you need to keep releasing something that is impressive in some way. And we saw this with Grok 2 weeks ago, where before they released, they kind of laid down the groundwork, not the Mecha Hitler stuff, but the things about humanity's last exam. They're making sure stuff was leaked. They're making sure everyone knew how impressive it was, because you need, when you release a frontier model now, is no longer good enough to just be the same as the other people. You need to have pushed the boundaries. So the question is, will GPT-5 be able to do that? I don't know. It's getting harder and harder to see what that differential is, because the models are so good nowadays. Suddenly the differential is in niche areas like the International Math Olympiad, for example, which are harder for lay people, for everyday people to understand why this is better, because I don't know about you, I'm not at the International Math Olympiad level. So when I'm told it's good at the International Math Olympiad, I'm like, okay, I will take your word for it. But increasingly, we're going to be moving into those kind of areas where it's hard to differentiate the increase in quality. So I don't know what they're going to release that will excite and surprise people. And I'm sure they're trying to work that out right now, which is probably why they're delayed. Any other decent people like Greg and you, thank you, Quirk, who are worth following? Yeah, Nate B. Jones, who I mentioned earlier, absolutely fantastic. He's primarily on YouTube and TikTok. I think TikTok's his main thing. Nate is, I mean, he's a genius. He's a really, really, really smart guy. But more importantly, he can explain AI concepts in simple language, which is a hell of a skill. So Nate B. Jones, absolutely. Over on Twitter, and I guess he's on LinkedIn, Ethan Mollick. So he's a professor at Wharton. And again, he's kind of on the forefront of practical uses of AI, and he's very good at explaining. He's also got a book, which isn't okay. No, the book's over there, I think. He's got a book called Co-Intelligence, which is one of the very, very few worthwhile books worth reading about AI. AI is a weird one because it's moving so fast. The AI book, so any book that's written about it becomes out of date extremely quickly. I have some good ones from there's one by Michael Woodworth, I think his name is, just called Artificial Intelligence, Penguin. It's a very good book, but it's written just as the GPT models are being deployed. So it's a good book about the history of AI, but it's without the information from the last couple of years. It means that the books are kind of woefully out of date. So there are kind of some predictions about where we're going to be going with AI, and they're all just like totally out of whack because it was written before GPT. But Ethan Mollick wrote Co-Intelligence, which was written after GPT, and it's a very, very, very good general book because it's not based on the specific models, but more on the ideas and how we work with artificial intelligence. So Ethan Mollick, Nate B. Jones. I mean, there's so many people. It depends what you're interested in. If you're interested in tools, then I'd look at someone like Marcin AI, Ross Flederjohn, who I mentioned earlier, Brand Nat, who I've worked with before. So Natalie Choprasant, she's on Instagram. They're very good. Gosh, I'm totally blanking out on people. Tech Friend, Fren, he does more kind of deep dives into the technology, and he does lives where he codes live. He talks about these kind of things. Oh, and Chip Huyen, butchering the Vietnamese name. Chip Huyen, who has also written books, but she's also a very good explainer of these of how the technology works. Oh, and of course, Andre Karpathy. That's on YouTube more than anything else, but his explanations of how large language models work, how ChatGPT works, are the best. The videos are long. They're about 3 hours long, but they're well worth it. And again, he's somebody who can educate and teach about these topics because he knows them so well that he's able to reduce them to very, very simple language. What are the predicted in-demand skills in AI right now? So it depends what level of AI. It's a bit of a weird one. So I like to think of AI kind of like the internet. It's like a general purpose technology, a GPT. Unfortunately, GPT also stands for general purpose technology. But AI is very similar. So it's a platform, a general purpose technology on which we build other technologies. So it's a bit like the internet. Some people came up with the internet protocol and how the internet works and the physical infrastructure, the physical networking, etc. But then other people built on top of the internet. So with the internet, we had the physical, the existence of the internet since the 1990s, but it took longer to work out things like social media. Like social media wasn't around for a while. E-commerce, that took some time to build. These are all different layers that are built on top of a technology. Same thing is going to happen with artificial intelligence. So your skills depend on what level and what layer you want to be building on. If you want to be at the base level, actually building models, working out the algorithms, training models, etc., then you need to learn machine learning um, and mathematics. Like, it's very doable, but that's going to be the harder job. Obviously, you can get paid extremely well if you are doing that. The especially in researchers, Meta is grabbing as many researchers as it can, giving them $100 million bonuses. There's a lot of money being thrown into this right now. But for most of us, well, not me, I don't have a PhD in mathematics or machine learning, we'll be building on the levels above. So building businesses using artificial intelligence, or helping other people work out how to use artificial intelligence. There's a big market there. That's where I make most of my money personally. So we won't be constructing the AIs, but we'll be building stuff using the artificial intelligences on top. So for that, I would, I've mentioned it before, I've learned to vibe code ASAP. It's probably one of the most exciting things you can do at the moment. There are problems, there are weaknesses in vibe coding, etc., but it allows you to build, and it allows you to build something that you can then sell. I would also focus on entrepreneurial skills, on marketing, and on sales in particular. I would get into content creation, so building up an audience, because, so come back to Greg Eisenberg. Greg Eisenberg says that the new economy is 20% building and 80% distribution. It's going to become easier and easier and easier to build. That's not going to be the problem anymore because of AI. What's going to be harder is distribution, being able to connect with people and to actually get them interested in what it is you have to sell. And that comes from audience, that comes from marketing, that comes from sales. So these are skills I would definitely be focusing on. This is even if you don't want to run a business. The reason is, we don't know what's going to happen to 9 to 5 jobs. It's probably not going to be good. We don't know. We don't know how bad it's going to be. But I would say the safe bet right now is to set up additional streams of income. So to have other things going, other coals in the fire, just in case your job, your 9 to 5, does not pan out. And I think increasingly, most of us are going to have to become more entrepreneurial. We're going to have to become more self-sufficient. Not because by being entrepreneurial necessarily successful, but by being entrepreneurial, you have more flexibility. So the only thing we know is that we don't know what's coming. People can say, oh, we're going to hit the singularity at this time, we're going to have robotics at this time, we don't know. Nobody knows. And anyone smart enough will say, we don't really know. So based on that, what you need to do is be ready. You need to be flexible, and having a job makes it hard to be flexible because you are at the whims of your employer. If your employer decides, oh yeah, we're going all in on robotics, or we're going all in on AI, great, fine, maybe they'll survive. If they say, no, we're not touching AI, we don't want anything to do with this, then they probably won't be around in a few years. And worse, if you are working for that company, you're not going to get the training you need. So I highly recommend people start something on the side. Don't quit your day job, keep the job, keep the income, but build something using AI that you can start to monetize on the side. And that mainly comes through packaging up your skills, packaging up your knowledge in some kind of way, building an audience, learning marketing, learning distribution, and getting it out there. Again, I've written a 10-week summer camp, AI summer camp, totally free. It's in the newsletter. If you subscribe to the newsletter, you can then get into archives and you can find all 10 weeks. So it's a 50-part series. Finding your niche, building in public, finding your startup idea, vibe coding your MVP, beta testing, grassroots marketing, basic revenue systems. And right now, this week, peer-to-peer growth, direct sales marketing, and going beyond. I haven't written that part yet, so I don't know what week 10 is yet. So skills, that's what I'd be focusing on. Flexibility, marketing, distribution, vibe coding, teaching, public speaking, building ties with people. So the things that are truly human as well, they're going to be things that AIs won't necessarily be very good at yet. So you can lean into that. So being able to speak publicly is going to be a really big one, because AI won't be doing that. It won't be getting up on stage just yet. So anything where you can lean into the human, the uniquely human, is probably going to become more valuable, at least in the short term. There's a big question though. I might do a whole a long YouTube video on this. What are the most in demand skills? Because it's a really good question. And whenever I talk to younger people, like my cousins and nephews and stuff like that, they'll ask me, what should I be studying? What should I be doing? It's like, I don't know. So I need to work out this answer. So I'll do a longer video on this. It's a great question. Oh, hey, thank you for the heart. Emin says, what do you think of the new ChatGPT agent feature? It's okay. It's fine. It's relatively limited at the moment because it does not, so far it doesn't connect up to that many things. So it's no better than any of the other agent systems out there at the moment. It's worse, in fact. So I've been using Manus for the last few months quite a lot. So I'm already, I guess I'm Manus pilled. I've been using Manus, and Manus is really good. And when I use the ChatGPT agent, I was like, it's okay, it's fine. It's not as good as Manus, but it is what it is. I think the important thing is that it's inside ChatGPT. So again, it's not the best product that wins. It is the one with the best distribution. I saw a fantastic chart of the uptake of Microsoft Teams versus, I think it was Slack or something like that. Slack is, Slack is arguably a better product, but Microsoft Teams has more distribution. So it is the most used one, but Microsoft Teams is terrible. It doesn't matter how good your product is. It's all about your distribution. And ChatGPT, that's what they have. They have a huge user base. So in the list of the most used consumer artificial AI apps, artificial intelligence apps, ChatGPT is at the top. So it's ChatGPT, DeepSeek, Character AI in that order. So ChatGPT do not need to release the best version of any product. It doesn't need to be the best image creator. It doesn't need to be the best advanced voice mode. It doesn't need to be the best agent or the best coding. It doesn't really matter because they have such a huge user base that they are bringing these technologies to the masses. So I think agent is fine, and it's exciting that everybody is now getting access to this. I just don't think it is as good as some of the other agentic systems out there. But again, it's built into something that everybody's using already. So I think that's how they win here. I'd also like to see it being integrated with more tools, because right now it's pretty limited. I imagine it will get better if and when they release a browser, because that will give it a bit more power too. But we'll see. We'll see. It's fine. It's perfectly fine. It's not as good as Manus. Freezer Bride with the Moomin profile photo. What are some good AI tools for writing long form content? So with long form, you're always going to run into issues with context window. So the context window is basically, simplifying this, but it's basically the memory of an artificial intelligence. So it's what you've given it, your prompt, your system prompt, questions, and then the chat that you have between yourself and the AI, back and forward. That's going to fill up this memory, this bucket of memory, and at some point it's going to run out. Some models like Claude will tell you, oh no, I've run out, start a new chat. Other models will not tell you, and they will just start to forget stuff from the beginning, which leads to chaos, hallucinations, and an absolute mess as the AI tries to fill in the blanks about what it should know but doesn't know. For long form content, this is a problem, because if you're writing a lot, it's going to start to forget what's going on at the beginning. So it depends what you're writing. If you're writing fiction, well, actually, no, it doesn't. If you write non-fiction or fiction, what you need to do is structure your information, get it into a project. So both Claude and ChatGPT have projects functionality that allows you to have a project knowledge that it can draw on. And you're going to have your prior sections, your prior chapters, etc. in there. You're also going to create like a running order document, which has an outline of the whole thing, plus rules about how you want to write it, etc., etc. So you're structuring everything in a way to give the AI the best chance at giving you a good result by having everything in this project knowledge. For written content, again, it depends what you're trying to write, but I generally prefer Claude. I find Claude has a better written style. That might be subjectively because it matches mine more closely, whereas ChatGPT does not. It sounds like ChatGPT to me, at least. So for long form written content, I would use a Claude project specifically. You could also look at Gemini. The reason for that is Gemini has a huge context window, 2 million tokens, whereas Claude is a couple of 100,000, I think. ChatGPT is even smaller. However, I don't personally like the writing style of Gemini. So it has that huge window, but it doesn't do very well within that huge context window. Test them out, see what works. Ultimately, that is the answer to all of these AI questions of which tool works best for what. Try them, because it's going to be about your subjective assessment of them as well. And this is why we are still important as elements in this creative process, because we have the discernment. Yes, sure, I could go to Gemini and say, write me a novel about, I don't know, a space explorer called Kyle, who's the first person to land on Mars. Yeah, sure, I could go and do that. It will be rubbish. So we need to give it a lot of context. We need to give it structures. We need to give it outlines. We need to work with it as a co-author rather than just having it generate a novel. And even then, there are moral and ethical issues. Again, depends what you're writing. But it's only through our kind of human taste and discernment that we can tell whether the output from the AI is good or not, and what needs editing and what needs changing. So go ahead and try a few. That's probably going to be my cop-out answer. But if you do need one answer, is going to be Claude and use the project feature. JJ, how do we learn to vibe code? This is another YouTube video I want to shoot. Honestly, just go to Lovable, lovable.dev. You could also use Bolt, B-O-L-T, or you can use Replit, R-E-P-L-I-T. Doesn't really matter. I prefer Lovable. Other people like different ones. Doesn't really matter. Go to Lovable and make an account. It's free. And then just type in something that you want to build. Like literally just do that. Don't worry about watching tutorials. Don't worry about, doing a course or anything. Go on there and start playing around because it will do very well, extremely well. Give it something basic for your first project. So don't say, I want to create a CRM system for my business and it needs to track 600 variables, etc. It will choke and it will not be able to do that. Instead, build something very basic like a calculator. Calculator is a classic kind of starter coding example, and it will just knock it out of the park for you. Go and play around with the tool, and then you can start to press up against the limits of it. When you hit problems, you go to ChatGPT or you go to Claude or whatever it is, and you work through the problems with ChatGPT. So literally, you would take a photo of what you're seeing in Lovable, and you take it over to ChatGPT and you say, hey, this is what's happening. I'm stuck in a loop, or I can't get this button to move, or I can't get authentication to connect to the database, or whatever it is. You explain your problem, you give screenshots as if you were talking to a customer service representative and you're looking for help on a piece of software. So do exactly the same thing. The more information you give, the better ChatGPT is going to be able to give you an answer. So that allows you to basically work through problems. And that is how we learn anything. Lovable is going to get started. It's going to get the basics in place. Then you're going to hit problems. By working through those problems, that's how you learn how to vibe code. That's how you learn the limitations and what it's good at and what it's not good at. And there's no real shortcut there. You just need to hit the friction, work through the friction. And that's basically how we learn. Sounds like a lot of work. It is a lot less work than learning to code. Believe me, a lot less work. So just go and play and then solve problems when they happen. It really helps if you have a project that you actually want to build. So some kind of cool idea that maybe you've been sitting on for ages. Just go and build it. Go and have some fun. How easy is it to create an AI call agent, an AI that can take orders over the phone? It's more complicated, but the voice models are getting better and better. The voice models are still relatively expensive, but it's definitely doable. So you could vibe code it. You probably need something a bit more robust because you need to have RAG, so retrieval augmented generation. Basically, you're going to have a database of common questions, common answers, all of the information that your customer service representatives would normally have at hand. So your product catalogs, customer service requests, your menu. I don't know what kind of orders you're taking, but you'd have to provide all of that in some kind of database, which the AI can draw upon. You might fine tune the AI. You would test out to see if you need to fine tune it, or maybe you just have RAG, retrieval augmented generation, which pulls that information. Depends on the complexity. What I would say is you could build this yourself. It's doable. There are many, many tools out there which do this for you, and they are cheap. We're talking like $20, $30, $50 a month, and you just upload all of your information. They give you access to the models and you hook them into your systems. Most of the time, that's probably going to be the better job, unless you're trying to build your own system to sell to other people, or you're building your own system because your company has thousands of agents, thousands of jobs that you want to optimize. Otherwise, if you are talking about taking a handful of orders a day, just use an off-the-shelf solution. Generally, this is going to be the case with any problem using AI, because the people who are building a call agent startup, they're going to be continuously improving their model. They're going to be continuously kind of keeping up to date with what works best. So just let them do the work, and you spend $50 a month or whatever it is. You can get this stuff cheap now. Thoughts on the 40 leading AI workers saying AI is about to start hiding its thoughts? Yes. So this is a reference to a research paper that came out a couple of weeks ago, I think, and it's co-signed by 40 different researchers. What was telling about it was that it's co-signed by people at OpenAI, people at Anthropic, and people at Meta, I think. Nobody from xAI, because they don't care. They nasty. So a bunch of these, and Anthropic, did I say Anthropic? I'm sure Anthropic were there. A bunch of these researchers all got together. They co-authored a paper basically saying, right now, the only way we can tell what an AI, a large language model, is thinking is because they use chain of thought. So you've probably seen this when you use a reasoning model in particular. There will be a little box that pops up, and you can see the AI is kind of talking to itself, and it would say something like, oh, the user asked me, what's the best way to integrate security into a lovable app? So I'm going to have a think about this, and I'm going to look up some things, and it will basically have this little internal monologue, and you can expand that monologue, and you can see the different sections it goes through. Basically, that's called chain of thought, and that can be explicitly written into large language models as a way to help them reason. Basically, by having them go through step by step by step by step, it's been found that large language models get to better answers. It helps them to think. I'm doing scare quotes here because it's not really thinking, it's not really reasoning. That's a different question. The chain of thought, the great thing about chain of thought is we can see what it's doing. Cool. And it also allows them to reach better conclusions generally. This is what's allowed all of the increases in the reasoning benchmarks and things like the International Math Olympiad. It's because they are reasoning through step by step. The problem with this is it uses more tokens. So it is more computationally, it's more work because they are asking many questions, and they're doing it all in human language. And human language is not that efficient. So if you read one of these chain of thoughts, it is like it's having a little internal monologue. It's kind of bumbling along that, oh, the user asked this. Oh, that's a good question. It will bumble around to itself, and it gets to the answer. So it works. But that's using up a huge amount of additional credits, which uses more energy, and it uses more of the system's power. So if you want to make a more efficient AI that uses less electricity, which is the main cost when you're running a model, you want to squeeze that reasoning process down. And one way that may happen is the AIs come up with their own language. There's no particular reason why they have to use human language to go through that process. That's just kind of how they're built at the moment, but that doesn't need to be the case. They may be able to infer a different way of reasoning that is no longer passable by us humans. So we're no longer able to read it. It might just look like gobbledygook. It might just be a string of numbers. We don't know. But that allows it to go through that same process in a much more condensed time and to reach the reasoning conclusion without having wasted all of those tokens. What will happen, the models might work this out themselves because we are using AI to help come up with AI algorithms. So there may be a point where the AI is like, hey, why am I using human language? This is dumb. These humans, they talk in circles. It's all over the place. I could do this much more efficiently. And so the training, this is not a conscious thing, but the training will lead to a more efficient route. There's going to be less loss, and that will be using potentially a made up language. It might look like a programming language. We don't know. We have no idea. So what these researchers, 40 researchers, are saying is like, this is the last time in history, potentially, that we have an insight into how these models are thinking because we have chain of thought. So they're saying, if we lose that, then these models are a complete black box. They're a complete unknown. We put something in and something comes out. What happens in the middle? Don't know, and we cannot even go back and check the process. Which is true. I mean, they're already kind of a black box, but this gives us some kind of insight into the process they're going through. It doesn't give us much insight into how they're going through that process, but that's a step beyond. So these researchers are saying we must keep chain of thought in place so that we do not lose control of these AIs. We do not lose control of being able to see their reasoning process. So the problem is, and this has happened again and again in artificial intelligence, what they are asking for is basically a slowdown. They're saying we should not push on. We need to keep in place this mechanism, even though it slows everything down, even though it requires more computation, even though it requires more electricity, which means we're going to need bigger data centers. We're going to need more electricity. It's going to become more and more wasteful because we're keeping in this old method. What's going to happen, though? These people can sign research papers. They can, put forward proclamations and ethical statements. As soon as one company abandons that, they're going to race ahead because their AI is not going through this onerous chain of thought process and instead working things out much faster. And then suddenly, oh shit, that model is 10 times faster and it's using 10 times less tokens. Guess what happens then? Every other company will fall in. So it becomes this brinksmanship, basically, where you can sign statements, you can write research papers, but as soon as one of these companies works it out and has a model that can reason for cheaper and faster and better, they're going to do it. Noticeably, XAI did not sign this paper, or they're not part of this research, so they'll be happy to do it. And if they're going to do it, do you think OpenAI are going to look back at this research paper and be like, oh, well, we did sign this paper, maybe we shouldn't do it? No, of course not. Everyone's going to fall in board. So I think it's a nice idea, but like with everything in the slowdown movement, it requires a unilateral decision. It requires everyone making models to come to that same conclusion. It's not going to happen. Capitalism will prevail, unfortunately, and it will just continue to progress. So I think it's an interesting historical blip, but it's not going to have any actual effect. Cindy asked, what's the name of the paper? Great question. Let me find it for you. The actual paper is very boring. If you actually read it, it's just been turned into one of these headlines like, we won't be able to know what the AI is thinking. We don't know what the AI is thinking anyway. Like, this is chain of thought helps us to pretend that we know what's going on. We don't. We have no idea. So is this it? So there's a huge amount of fear around this paper too. So researchers from top AI labs, including Google, OpenAI, and Anthropic, warn they may be losing the ability to understand advanced models. They already don't know what's going on. Nobody knows what's going on. Just try to find the paper. There's a lot of coverage, but hard to find the paper. Here we go. The paper is called Chain of Thought Monitorability. Good God. Chain of Thought Monitorability. You know the academics named this one. Chain of Thought Monitorability. Mike, that's not a word. A new and fragile opportunity for AI safety. So it's from the UK AI Security Institute, Apollo Research, Anthropic, OpenAI, DeepMind, Meta, UC Berkeley, Amazon. Amazon got a hand on the ball there, etc., etc. It's written by 40 odd people. It's also endorsed by Ilya Sitskiva, and it's endorsed by Geoffrey Hinton. Okay, so they're pulling out the big guns on this one. It's worth reading the paper, but that's my basic conclusion that, yeah, sure, great. It'd be fantastic if we can hold this in place, but the economic reality of it is as soon as one company breaks away from this, it's over. And all of these nice words and all of these warnings won't matter. So it's a bit cynical, isn't it? Cool. Actually, gosh, I've already gone for an hour 15, which was not my plan. So, yeah, I'm going to stop it for now, and then cover the other news I was going to cover tomorrow. Actually, I'll do one quickly. So there's one from Sam Altman, so the head of OpenAI. So he's warning there's no legal confidentiality when using ChatGPT as a therapist. So let me find, this is on the Theo Von podcast, which is well worth listening to. Not necessarily because Theo is a great interviewer. Well, no, that's uncharitable. He helps people to open up a lot. And so, I mean, here's a quote from Sam Altman. People talk about the most personal shit in their lives to ChatGPT, Altman says. People use it, young people especially use it as a therapist, a life coach, having these relationship problems and asking, what should I do? And right now, if you talk to a therapist or a lawyer or a doctor about those problems, there's a legal privilege for it. There's doctor-patient confidentiality, there's legal confidentiality, whatever. And we haven't figured that out yet for when you talk to ChatGPT. So what Sam Altman is warning about is, hey, guys, you are putting a lot of personal information into our models. Careful. So this is the head of ChatGPT saying, careful with this. The reason is, if that information is put into ChatGPT, there is no confidentiality. So in the same way that if I talk to a therapist or a doctor, there's a confidentiality. If I talk to a lawyer, there's a confidentiality. That does not exist with an AI, not right now. So that means if OpenAI are asked to provide records, they can legally be forced to do so because they can't say, no, it's confidential. So what Sam Altman is arguing, he says, here we go, this can create a privacy concern for users in the case of a lawsuit because OpenAI would legally be required to produce those conversations today. And he says, goes on to say, I think that's very screwed up. I think we should have the same concept of privacy for your conversations with AI that we do with a therapist or whatever. And no one had to even think about that a year ago. So what Sam Altman is saying is, he's saying, yes, be careful, because we could be legally required to produce your chat conversations. So what you've said to ChatGPT may not be secure. We may be required to release your chat logs. But he's using this as a way to kind of leverage the point that, oh, we need confidentiality. He's trying to get greater privacy and again, legal confidentiality for his model. He's trying to say that what we put in should be treated with the same level of confidentiality as doctors, lawyers, etc., etc. So yeah, he's warning people and he's saying there's a potential problem here, but he's also using that as a way to push and to lead to a fear, so that us as users are pushing on lawmakers to say, hey, we need this to be confidentiality. I'm giving this chat model a lot of secrets. I need this to be confidentiality. So this is an interesting case because it is bringing us closer to concepts of AI having a legal responsibility. So right now, lots of jobs like lawyers, medical professionals, etc., they will still be safe because an AI cannot be held legally responsible. So if I go to a lawyer and I get them to sign off on a contract, I'm basically passing the buck onto the lawyer. That's what I'm paying for. I'm paying to remove well, not fully remove, but to move some of the legal heat to that lawyer in case something goes wrong. Because if I get sued, I can go back to my lawyer and sue that lawyer. you cannot yet sue ChatGPT in that same way. If ChatGPT gives me professional advice, legal advice, or medical advice, and it turns out to be wrong, I can't go to ChatGPT and sue ChatGPT because it does not exist as a legal person. It doesn't have personhood. Potentially, you could sue OpenAI, but that's a whole different thing. But what Sam Altman is pushing at here, and I think pushing at the edges of it, and it's going to be interesting, is saying, we should have similar laws as if you were talking to a therapist, which seems very reasonable from a user point of view. But what this is doing is opening up the question of legal personhood for artificial intelligence. I don't know if he's doing this consciously, but this is en route towards those discussions, which are things that need to be had. Primarily because our legal systems globally, not just in the US, but everywhere, they are not equipped to deal with artificial intelligence. And the legal systems are going to take a long time to catch up. So we need to start having these questions of, can an AI be held liable? Maybe. But for it to be held liable, does it need to be a person, etc., etc.? It opens up a whole can of worms. And yeah, it's well worth listening to the whole podcast. That's not the only thing to talk about. They talk about a huge amount of things. And it's interesting to get that kind of insight into Sam Altman in that unguarded, less of a CEO, more of a human being setting. So well worth checking out. Right. I am actually going to finish up. Let me quickly answer these last questions. Grace is saying, if only elite labs afford reasoning models, global south and open communities left behind. Yeah. So this is the huge risk right now in artificial intelligence. Basically, there are 5 or 6 big players. There are not many companies on Earth who are capable of building frontier level based models. We've got Google, we've got OpenAI, we've got DeepSeek, we have Anthropic, we have xAI, and then we kind of have Meta. Meta in a weird place because Meta do open source their models, which is cool. But beyond those 5 or 6, I think that might be it. I might be missing one. Microsoft. No, I'm not going to include Microsoft because they're built on OpenAI, and what they built on is not very good either. So I'm not even going to include Microsoft in here, and I'm not going to include Apple either because their AI is, non-existent and or terrible. Sorry, I haven't dunked on Apple for a while. I love Apple, like I'm full Apple everywhere, but whoo, they dropped the ball. So Grace is saying, if only these elite labs can afford the reasoning models, global south and open communities are left behind. Absolutely. So this is the big risk, I think, right now is not just the global south and open communities, but people, normal people are being left behind. And we are seeing potentially the most powerful technology we've ever seen in human history being concentrated into the hands of 5, 6, 7, maybe 10 billionaires. In some cases, it's extremely direct. So Elon Musk and xAI, that's an extremely direct link, where it even started calling itself Musk the other day. So that is almost like a manifestation, a personification of one person. Terrifying. But even in Sam Altman's case, even if it's not modeled directly on him, even if it's not just his values, it's still his company, and his company train the human trainers for reinforcement learning. For example, they train the guidelines and the biases, etc. What can be said, what can't be said. We need those guidelines. This is not me arguing for total deregulation. It's not me talking about a neutral AI. I don't think there's anything that I don't think it exists, despite what Trump wants to say and Trump's AI plan. I don't think there's such a thing as a truly neutral AI because it depends on what material we give it and then the training. The main concern here is that any individuals have this amount of power. Doesn't matter who those individuals are. They could be the most benevolent dictators ever. They're still an individual. So I think that is the huge risk here. And currently, AIs are also being used to solidify this. They're being mainly used by white men, so people like me. We need to change that. We need to make sure that everyone has full access to this. We need to make sure that there are equal opportunities of access and also training, so that people are not scared of this technology so that people can leverage it, because otherwise it's like, being 20, 30 years ago, and having a disparity in internet uptake, which we did have. When you give a productivity tool of this immensity to one group and they run off with it, they are going to economically open up a gap between people who are not using it. So I think it behooves us, as people who are learning about AI, as people who are using AI in everyday situations, to go and teach. So I personally do, I do paid workshops for companies, businesses, charge a lot of money. Most is like $4,000 per hour, like good money for that. But then on the other side, I do pro bono work with charity, mainly for refugee and asylum seeking charities here in London, helping them to start to use AI tools in order to, process applications, to with language issues, with settling into the UK, etc., etc. If you are somebody who uses AI, I think you should also be helping other people to work this out, because we can't let a small handful, we're talking about tens or a couple of hundred people maximum, control this technology entirely. We need to make sure that everybody understands it and everybody's able to build with it and kind of keep up to date with what's going on, because it's pretty damn important. Quirk and the Click, thank you for taking the time to answer all these questions. Really interesting session. Thank you. So normally I do a lot more news, but we have so many good questions coming. So yeah, I'm happy to answer these questions. I do this every day, Monday to Friday, at 10 a.m. generally, 10 a.m. to 11 a.m. I've gone a bit longer today, but that's fine. I just like answering the questions. This also gets chopped up into YouTube videos. So we will remove certain sections, we will tidy them up, and then turn them into YouTube videos. You can find exact sections on what you're interested in. And it goes into a newsletter where it's a summary of last week's, and that newsletter comes out every day at 8 a.m. So a summary of the prior live, and again that has time codes, that has the ability to kind of find the information you're looking for. That's all free, so free on YouTube obviously, but also a free newsletter. Joe says expert of nothing, has no clue what's coming. I assume you mean me. I fully accept I have no idea what's coming. In fact, I've talked about that several times on this live. I think that anyone who says they know what's coming is, well, they're either stupid or they're lying, basically. Noah Yuval Harari, the guy who wrote Sapiens, I think he put this brilliantly. So he studied big history, and in one of his TV interviews, he said, he basically said, for all of human history, we've kind of known the general trajectory. Like, it's hard to predict certain wars and famines, etc., but we'd know roughly like which way everything was going, up or down or in certain directions. You know the general drift of history, and I believe that to be true. My undergrad is in history, and that seemed to be, everything kind of trends slowly in one direction, and with enough foresight you can kind of see where it's going. So Noah Yuval Harari said, this is the first time ever that we do not know what the world's going to look like in 20 years. We just don't know. And anyone who says they know is, a liar, or they're stupid. So I don't know if I'm an expert of nothing, but I have no clue what's coming, Joe. That's 100% right. You could probably say it in a nice way, but you do you. It's your Monday morning. Cool. Oh, Cindy says, can you explain more about how you help charities? So, so I give workshops where I will go in and I will show staff members or members of the public how to use AI. So generally very basic stuff, because most people are not at the level of you guys. You guys are sitting watching a live about artificial intelligence. That tells me that you know a lot about this already compared to the general public. So honestly, you go in and you give a workshop, you find out upfront how people are using AI, what they use it for, if they're using it at all, and you can adjust the material. I give them a basic introduction about how to think about AI, giving them the basics of prompt engineering. I don't call it that. I talk about communication, but I give them a framework to get better results from AI, and then show them the kind of tasks they can use AI on that it's very good at, versus, importantly, the tasks it's not very good at, and helping them to learn the difference between the two. And then we'll often work out a project that they can work on after the workshop. And sometimes in longer workshops, we will begin working on that with an exercise. Workshops really, though, are about them. They're about other people in the room acquiring the skill. It's not just you going up on stage and talking to them for an hour or 2 hours. That's boring. Nobody wants that. Instead, using AI is a skill. So it is really very exercise based. It's very interactive. So I will talk for a bit, then have them do an exercise and learn how to use AI in that sense. So I do this for businesses and get paid very well, but I also do it for charities because they also need this help and they can't afford for the training generally, or there are not enough people providing that training. So that's what I personally do. In order to find them, relatively simple, because it's free. I say, hey, I give AI trainings. Is this something that you would be interested in? And I just reach out to charities I want to work with. And generally the answer is yes. In fact, it's always been yes. No, that's not right. There was one who said no, but that was because they didn't want to use AI. They didn't want anything to do with AI, etc., which is hard for me to change. It's not up to me to change. Cool. Do you think, oh, Cindy, do you think you'll be able to run a workshop for those who want to start doing this part-time? Yes. So, okay, I wasn't going to pitch anything, but I do. Okay. I do actually have something called the AI Workshop Kit. So I get so much demand to go and give workshops myself that now I only take the paid workshops that are overseas and I use it as a way to go and travel, basically. So I pick and choose ones that I want. But because there was so much demand, what I started doing was licensing out my materials. So licensing my workshop slides, teaching people how to get clients, how to customize material, how to deliver, how to facilitate, how to deal with difficult questions and stuff like that. Like basically giving people a full package about the content that they're going to go and teach. I give them my slides. I teach them how to teach my slides, but also the business around that, like the pitch deck, the proposals, the how you do outreach, who you should be talking to get your first workshop, etc., etc., etc. So I license all of that out to people, and it's called the AI Workshop Kit. We are launching the next one in September. So when is it? We're nearly in August. So in about 4 weeks' time, we're launching cohort number 5. We have just finished last Thursday. We finished cohort number 4. So it's a 4-week program where you get all the materials, and then once a week we have a live call with me. And there's also a self-paced course you can work through it at your own time, plus all the resources like proposal documentations, pricing calculators, etc., like the whole business. So that is starting again in September. So I don't come on this live to pitch, but if you are interested in that, the best place to get details is going to be on the newsletter. So the newsletter is free. There's a link in my bio. And when we are moving towards the launch, which will be in September, we'll post some details about how to join. And we generally have 30 to 50 people join us on each cohort, and everyone learns together. It's a really nice group as well, because we have people from all over the world. Like on the last live was on Thursday. We had somebody tune in from New Zealand, and I think it was 3 a.m. or 5 a.m. in the morning for him. And then we had other people in Florida and people in Europe and stuff like that. It's a cool group, and for whatever reason, really, really lovely people. I seem to attract nice people, which is yeah, I love that. Cool. I am actually going to finish up. Oh, Cindy says, I'd love to join cohort 5 in September. Yeah, join the newsletter and you will we'll send you information there. That's going to be the best place. Cool. Thank you, guys. I went on for an extra half an hour today. That's thank you. It's because of all the great questions on TikTok in particular. So thank you for that. And I will see you tomorrow morning. I'm going to cover the news stories that I did not cover today and cover them tomorrow, including the T app, which is a messy one. So T was a data leak which leaked over the details of 70,000 women who had signed up to basically give information about problematic men. So the women's information has been leaked, and potentially it was vibe coded, which is a huge risk. I don't think it was vibe coded though, so I'm going to talk about that tomorrow and why I don't think it was vibe coded. I will see you tomorrow at 10 a.m. and thank you again for all of the questions. You make these lives far more vivid, because otherwise it's just me talking for an hour and nobody wants that. Bye guys.